In the dead of night, a spectral mist chokes Arlington, wrapping the tomb of the unknown soldier in a ghostly veil. Tomb Guard Leo Donovan marches his 21 steps, boots echoing, heart steady, until they emerge. 3 soldiers, pale as marble in tattered World War II uniforms, their hollow eyes burning with a silent plea. Then, a frail old man slips through the shadows, leaving a note. To the night patrol, he's just a trespasser. But they don't know what Leo is about to uncover is an 80-year secret. Before I tell you what those words were, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. The story begins on a bone-chilling November midnight, where the air itself seems to hold its breath. The air was a bone-chilling November midnight, so cold it felt like a physical weight on Leo Donovan's shoulders. At 30, Leo was a portrait of discipline, his form sharp and unwavering within the heavy wool of his uniform. As a sentinel of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, his world had shrunk to the 63-foot black slate plaza before the tomb of the unknown soldier. 21 steps, a pause of 21 seconds, a turn to face the tomb for another 21 seconds. Repeat. It was a sacred rhythm, a living vow of vigilance he had perfected over 2 painstaking years. Each click of his steel-tipped boots against the stone was a heartbeat of a grateful nation. The world outside this plaza, the politics, the noise, the chaos, ceased to exist. Here there was only duty. But tonight, the duty felt different. The spectral mist, thicker than any he'd ever seen, swirled around the marble sarcophagus, muffling sound and distorting the familiar glow of the eternal flame. It clung to the air, cold and damp, carrying a silence that felt older and heavier than the stones themselves. He completed his walk, executed a flawless turn, and froze. His breath hitched, a tiny, unprofessional gasp swallowed by the fog. There, standing just beyond the ceremonial chains, were 3 figures. They weren't tourists. They weren't guards. They were soldiers. Their uniforms, the olive drab wool of the Second World War, were tattered and stained with what looked like mud and melted snow. Their faces were ashen, almost translucent in the mist, and their eyes were hollowed-out pits of shadow, yet from their depths burned a light of desperate, pleading intensity. One of them, a tall, lanky kid who couldn't have been more than 19, slowly raised a hand, his finger pointing toward a distant, obscure corner of the cemetery. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the disciplined silence of his mind. He blinked, a single, sharp motion, and they were gone. The space they had occupied was now just swirling, empty mist. "Get a grip, Donovan," he whispered, his voice a ragged edge in the quiet. Long night. Tricks of a light. He forced his body back into the rhythm. 21 steps. Pause. Turn. But the image was seared into his mind. The burning eyes, the pointing hand. It felt real. Too real. At the end of his shift, as the first hint of a gray dawn threatened the horizon, he performed his final protocol, a meticulous inspection of the tomb's base. And there, tucked beneath a small, loose stone as if placed by a trembling hand, was a piece of parchment. It wasn't modern paper. It was brittle, cream-colored, and folded into a tiny square. With gloved hands, he carefully unfolded it. The ink, a faded blue, was written in a shaky, looping cursive. The message was 5 simple words. "Please, give us back our honor." A chill, colder than the November air, snaked down his spine. He looked up, scanning the silent rows of white headstones. In the distance, he saw him, the frail figure of an old man, leaning heavily on a cane, shuffling away into the dissipating mist. Just then, the sweeping beams of the night patrol's flashlights caught the man. "Sir, stop right there," a voice barked. "This is a restricted area." But the old man didn't stop. He didn't even turn. He just continued his slow, determined walk until the fog swallowed him completely. Leo slipped the note into his pocket, his mind a whirlwind. The next day, he approached his superior, Sergeant Marcus Thorne, a man whose face seemed carved from granite and whose stare could stop a charging bull. Thorne was a legend in the Old Guard, a man who lived and breathed regulations. Leo presented the note. Thorne read it, his expression unreadable, and handed it back. "Listen to me, Donovan," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "This place has stories. Whispers. Every guard who's walked this plaza has seen things they can't explain. Your job is to guard that tomb, not chase ghosts. Whatever this is, it's a distraction." He paused, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. "But you're a good soldier. If you feel you must look into this, do it quietly. Off the clock. And it never, ever interferes with your duty." "Understood." Leo nodded a simple yes, Sergeant. That night, back on the plaza, the mist returned, and so did they. The three soldiers. This time, they were closer, their forms more solid. The young one pointed again, more urgently this time. Leo held his ground, his march unwavering, but a cold resolve settled in his heart. This wasn't a trick of the light. This was a duty of a different kind. Leo knew he couldn't let it go. The discipline Sergeant Thorne demanded was ingrained in him, but so was the very reason he guarded the tomb, to honor those who could no longer speak for themselves. These soldiers, these ghosts, were trying to speak, and he was the only one listening. For the next 2 nights, he watched the old man, Samuel Sam Finch, from a distance, observing his sorrowful, clandestine ritual. On the 3rd night, Leo waited until the patrol had passed before approaching him near the edge of the cemetery grounds. "Sir," Leo said softly, not wanting to startle the elderly veteran. "The notes, are they from you?" Sam turned, his face a roadmap of deep-set wrinkles, but his eyes were sharp and clear, filled with a profound, century-old sadness. He clutched a worn, tarnished insignia in his palm. The crest of the 28th Infantry Division, 110th Regiment. "They're for my boys," Sam rasped, his voice fragile as dry leaves. "My squad, Elias, Noah, and Caleb. We fought in the Bulge. The coldest winter of hell you could ever imagine." He told his story in fragmented bursts, the words torn from a place of deep pain. They were part of a rifle squad sent to hold a forward position in the Ardennes forest in December 1944. General Langley, a commander desperate for a victory, had pushed them forward based on faulty intelligence, assuring them the sector was clear. It wasn't. It was a German stronghold. "We walked right into the jaws of the beast," Sam whispered, his eyes distant. "Machine guns, mortars, they tore us to shreds. Elias, he was our singer, always humming some tune to keep our spirits up. He died right beside me. Noah, the big farm boy from Ohio, wanted to be a teacher. Caleb, the quiet one from Brooklyn, was the bravest man I ever knew. He took out machine gun nest before they got him. Sam was the sole survivor, found barely alive under the bodies of his friends. But the official report, written to protect the decorated General Langley, told a different story. It claimed the squad had failed to hold their position, that they had broken under pressure. They were labeled cowards to cover a general's catastrophic mistake. They stole their names, Sam said, a tear finally tracing a path through the wrinkles on his cheek. They died heroes, and the army buried them as failures. I've lived with that lie for 80 years. Leo felt the weight of that injustice settle on him. This was more than a ghost story. It was a desecration. He knew he couldn't untangle this alone. He needed experts. His first stop was the Arlington National Cemetery's historical archives, a quiet, solemn library that smelled of aging paper and floor polish. There he met Dr. Eleanor Vance, a woman in her late 60s with kind eyes magnified by thick spectacles and a passion for military history that was palpable. She listened intently as Leo recounted Sam's story and showed her the note. She examined the insignia Sam had given him. "The 110th Regiment," she murmured, her fingers tracing the crest. They were hit incredibly hard in the Bulge. Langley's advance was controversial, to say the least. There have always been whispers, rumors of a cover-up, but the official records are sealed tight or lost. She looked at Leo over her glasses. If what this veteran says is true, the proof will be buried under decades of bureaucracy. But I'll start digging. For Elias, Noah, and Caleb. But a historical record wasn't enough. They needed to bring the story into the light. Leo, after some hesitation, contacted a reporter for the Stars and Stripes newspaper. Isabella "Izzy" Rossi was not what he expected. She was young, barely 27, with a fiery energy that seemed to fill the small coffee shop where they met. She listened to his story, her pen flying across a worn leather-bound notebook, her sharp, intelligent eyes missing nothing. She was skeptical at first. A ghost story, a secret cover-up, a forgotten hero. It sounds like a movie script, Sergeant, she said, though she never called him by his rank. But, she continued, leaning forward, I can see in your eyes that you believe it. And that makes me believe it. She snapped her notebook shut. Okay, Tomb Guard, I'm in. But we need more than a veteran's memory. We need hard proof. Documents, letters, anything the Pentagon can't dismiss as the ramblings of an old man. The alliance was formed. The quiet historian, the determined reporter, and the steadfast Tomb Guard. United by a promise to an old soldier and the three ghosts who haunted the hallowed grounds of Arlington. Their investigation began to move with a quiet urgency. Dr. Vance, with her encyclopedic knowledge of the archives, started pulling at the loose threads of history. She found preliminary records, supply manifests that ended abruptly for Sam's squad, after-action reports with redacted paragraphs, and a commendation for General Langley for valor under extreme pressure, dated just days after the massacre. Each piece was circumstantial, a shadow of the truth, but together they began to form a chilling outline. Izzy, using her journalistic credentials, filed Freedom of Information Act requests, knowing they would likely be stonewalled, but that the act of filing them would create an official record of their inquiry. Leo, meanwhile, spent his off-duty hours with Sam, meticulously documenting every detail the old man could remember. He learned about Elias Vance's off-key singing, Noah Quinn's letters to his high school sweetheart, and Caleb Shaw's silent, unshakable courage. The ghosts were becoming men, but shadows move when light is shone upon them. Their digging had not gone unnoticed. One afternoon, Leo was summoned from his post. The order was direct and left no room for debate. He found himself standing at attention in an immaculate, imposing office in the Pentagon. Behind a large mahogany desk sat Colonel Sterling Blackwood, a man whose uniform was adorned with so many ribbons it looked like a shield. His face was severe, his eyes cold and assessing. He didn't invite Leo to sit. Donovan, Blackwood began, his voice smooth and dangerous. It has come to my attention that you've developed an extracurricular interest in military history. Specifically, the career of General Robert Langley. You let the name hang in the air. You are a Tomb Guard, one of the finest soldiers in this army. You represent a sacred tradition. You do not represent a tabloid journalist or a conspiracy theorist. General Langley was a hero of this nation. Blackwood stood and walked around the desk, stopping inches from Leo. I don't know what stories some senile veteran has been filling your head with, but I am ordering you to cease this investigation. Immediately. You are stirring a pot that needs to stay settled. Continuing down this path will be considered a grave error in judgment, and it will be the end of your distinguished career in the Old Guard. I can have you reassigned to a supply depot in the middle of a desert so fast your head will spin. Are we clear? The threat was not veiled. It was a naked display of power. For a moment, Leo's own ambition, his pride in his uniform, waged war with the promise he felt he'd made to the ghosts. He looked Blackwood in the eye. Crystal clear, sir, he said, his voice steady. But in his heart, the threat had the opposite effect. It was no longer just a suspicion. Blackwood's aggressive pushback was a confirmation. They were hiding something. That evening, a fire burning in his soul, Leo went back to Sam's small, quiet house. He brought with him a small audio recorder. Sam, he said, his voice filled with a new resolve. I need you to tell me everything. Again, don't leave anything out. I want to hear about the snow, the sound of the guns, the look in their eyes. Everything. For hours, Sam spoke, his frail voice gaining strength as he resurrected his friends from the ashes of his memory. He spoke of the biting wind, the way the snow muffled their footsteps before the ambush, the smell of cordite, and the final, defiant words of his friends. Leo listened, the quiet hum of the recorder the only other sound in the room. When Sam was finished, exhausted and emotionally drained, Leo leaned forward and placed a hand on the old man's shoulder. "Thank you, Sam," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He looked the veteran square in the eye. "You have carried this for 80 years. Let me carry it now. I swear on the honor of the tomb I guard, I will not let them be forgotten. I will see this through to the end." It was no longer just a mission. It was a solemn vow. In that small, quiet living room, the weight of history shifted from one soldier's shoulders to another's. The threat from Colonel Blackwood galvanized the small team. They were no longer just searching for a story. They were fighting against an active effort to suppress it. Dr. Vance, fueled by a historian's indignation, dove deeper into the archives, venturing into the misfiled and declassified pending review sections, a bureaucratic purgatory for sensitive documents. For a week, she found nothing. Then late one night, in a dusty crate marked World War II comms, Ardennes sector damaged, she found it. Not a pristine report, but a radio operator's logbook, its pages warped by moisture. And on one of those pages, a frantic, hand-scrawled entry from December 16th, 1944. It was a direct transcription of General Langley ordering the 110th's forward platoon to advance, followed by a desperate plea from their captain on the ground reporting heavy, unexpected enemy resistance. Langley's response was chillingly clear: hold position at all costs. Advance is not optional. End transmission. It was the smoking gun. The undeniable proof that Langley knew his men were walking into a death trap, and, to save face, sent them to their deaths anyway. Dr. Vance called Izzy in the middle of the night. The next morning, Izzy confronted her editor, Tom Bradley, a cautious, old-school newsman. He read the logbook transcription, looked at Sam's testimony, and paled. "Izzy, do you know what you're asking?" he said, rubbing his temples. "You're accusing a national hero of what amounts to murder. The Pentagon will crush us." Izzy stood her ground. His heroism was built on the graves of men he betrayed. She shot back. "Their names are Elias Vance, Noah Quinn, and Caleb Shaw. They deserve the truth. This is why we became journalists, Tom. Not to print press releases, but to uncover what powerful men want to keep buried." Her passion, backed by the irrefutable evidence, won him over. "God help us," he sighed. "Write it, but make it bulletproof." Izzy's article, "The Forgotten Heroes of the Bulge," was published 2 days later. It was a masterful piece of journalism, weaving Sam's heartbreaking testimony with the cold, hard facts from the radio log. It told the story not of cowards, but of brave young men who sang songs in the snow, dreamed of teaching school, and fought to their last breath because their general had failed them. The response was a tidal wave. Veterans organizations across the country flooded senators' offices with calls. The story went viral, a firestorm of public outrage. The Pentagon, faced with a PR nightmare and undeniable proof, buckled. An official inquiry was launched, and within a month, the inevitable conclusion was reached. The official record of Sam's squad was to be corrected. A special ceremony was held at Arlington on a crisp spring morning. Veterans, families, and soldiers gathered near the tomb. Leo stood guard, his posture perfect, his heart full. A new bronze plaque was unveiled, inscribed with the names of the fallen men of the 110th. The inscription read, Elias Vance, Noah Quinn, Caleb Shaw. They fought with valor and died as heroes. Their honor is restored. Sam Finch, frail and in a wheelchair pushed by Leo, placed a single white rose at the base of the plaque. His face, for the first time Leo had known him, was at peace. As taps played, its mournful notes echoing across the hills, a profound sense of justice settled over the crowd. A week later, Sam passed away peacefully in his sleep. His fight was over. That night, as Leo walked his 21 steps, the plaza was silent and the mist was thin. But as he made his final turn before dawn, he saw them one last time. Elias, Noah, and Caleb. They stood not by the chains, but further back, by the new plaque bearing their names. Their forms were no longer desperate or pleading. They were whole. They stood tall and proud, and as Leo watched, they raised their hands in a single, crisp salute. A salute of gratitude, of peace. Leo nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement passing between soldiers across the veil of time. Then, as the first rays of sun crested the horizon, they faded, not into mist, but into light. The plaza was empty, but Leo knew he was not alone. The honor of the fallen was finally home. This story is more than just a tale of forgotten soldiers. It's a powerful testament to the fact that honor knows no expiration date. True courage isn't always found in the heat of battle, but sometimes in the quiet, decades-long fight for a truth that has been buried. It's a reminder that behind every name carved in stone, there is a story that deserves to be told, and a promise that must be kept. Have you ever met someone who dedicated their life to honoring a promise made long ago? What would you have done if you were in Leo's shoes, facing the potential end of your career for the sake of a truth no one else seemed to care about? Do you believe that preserving a nation's perfect heroes is more important than acknowledging the sacrifices of the ordinary soldiers who served under them? Let us know in the comments. If this story about commitment and honor moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about forgotten heroes. Share this video with someone you know who believes that truth and courage are timeless values. We read every single comment, and your voice matters in keeping these legacies alive. Your engagement helps us bring more stories like this to light. There are more stories about historical mysteries and incredible acts of valor waiting for you on your screen right now. Click on one of them to watch next, and we'll see you tomorrow with a brand new story uncovering a long-lost secret from the Cold War.